Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hey everyone, welcome back to War Games Unlocked, and today I'm doing a discussion over Mythic Battles Isfet. This is the third iteration in the Mythic Battles system that is based in the Egyptian pantheon. Now, I have done a review over, I believe, just Mythic Battles Ragnarok. I think I actually have done Pantheon as well. If you want to go check those out, but the long and short of this entire discussion is basically that if you like those other two, you're going to like this one. It is essentially the exact same formula with the Egyptian kind of skin on it. I have not done a like 1-to-1 ratio to truly see if every single unit is unique or if it's like, oh, this monster is basically a reskin of another monster. I'm sure there might be some people out there who have done that. But from my experience of playing Ragnarok and Pantheon and this one, nothing immediately jumped out to me to where I was like, oh, okay, Bastet is basically Hermes, but, just as a cat. I haven't been able to catch that just in my natural playthroughs of this. But yeah, if you're into the other two games and you just want more gods and a new pantheon to explore or combine with all of your other stuff, then I would highly recommend this one. I really, really like this system. It just is such a clean, innovative skirmish game. And my history with skirmish games is that I generally don't like a lot of them. A lot of them tend to be you do a lot of planning and then you hope that randomness goes in your favor. And this game kind of fixes a lot of that. Yeah, there are keywords and talents and stuff that you have to learn, but they really make this very accessible for how much content you actually get. This game does have a lot of miniatures and a lot of boards, and they really just make it extremely fun to get to the table. Easy to get to the table and super fun to play. One of my there are two things about this game that I really, really enjoy, and this is for Isfet and for the other two as well. One of them is this deck system. So normally, like with skirmish games, you have kind of a point allocation. If you're just doing a regular skirmish, you have a point allocation based off the number of players. It does go up to 4. I haven't personally tried it at 4. I think I've heard of a friend who has played it with more, and he said it was fine, but I've always played this at 2. But you have a certain number of points each player gets, and then you draft. You have to have a divinity, but then you draft monsters, heroes, and basically after you're done with all those, then you have troops that you can get. But each character has their own points allocated to them, and so it's really up to you on the kind of team you're willing to build. And I think one that's incredibly easy to get to understand, but once you're done with that, each character has a certain number of cards that you throw into a deck. And unlike a lot of skirmish games where you have all your units and you're able to kind of decide on which ones you want to activate at any given time, you have a certain number of cards in your hand, and whichever of their cards you have, those are who you get to activate. I really like that. It takes a lot of the kind of analysis paralysis out of the way, and whenever you're looking to do your turn, it's like, well, this is who I have. Who do I want to activate? What's my goal? Because your goal is either to kill the opposing enemy's god or to absorb a certain number of these Keppers, in this case, to your god, and you need to absorb 4 of them to win. So the deck system I really enjoy. They also have these Art of War cards that allow you to kind of mitigate your deck. If you're really wanting to activate a certain hero because there's a perfect scenario for them to do something, but you can't because you didn't happen to draw them. But you have an Art of War card. You can discard it, and that allows you to either draw 2 cards or search your deck for the character that you are really wanting to activate, and then continue on with your turn. And your turns are incredibly simple too. You either do up to 2 simple actions or 1 complex action, and that's it. If you want to activate a different unit, discard an Art of War card, activate a different unit, and then that's your turn. Then, so I really like the deck system. The other cool thing about the deck is that, let's say you have units who are killed. Well, it's not like you now have dead cards in your hand. They are still virtually useless, but if you draw, 2 of them, let's say Amit and the Babas are dead, even though those can actually come back. So let's say Amit and Kensha are dead. Their cards are kind of like pseudo Art of War cards. If you drew, 2 Amit cards or 2 Kensha cards or 1 of each, you can discard both of them and they act as an Art of War in terms of doing a maneuver, not necessarily to activate like character special abilities. So I love how those cards are not actually just useless, where you have a whole hand of nothing and you're just like, alright, well you killed more of my units, I guess I don't get to go. Now there could be times where you have to draw a card and it's like, oh, this is the only card I have in my hand. When you're top decking, that's still not great regardless, but it's like, oh, this card sucks, it's a dead unit, I don't have 2 of them. Well, when you pass, you get to draw again, and it's like, okay, cool. So you kind of get to play a little catch up. You still don't get to go, which could be brutal, but yeah, you still kind of get to come back into it. The other thing about the deck that I really, really like is that when you run out, if your opponent has an ability that lets you draw, Kensha actually has at the start of her activation, she can draw a card or look at the top 3, or Set, his ability is if anyone's wounded in an area attack, they have to discard a card, so there's some actual card and deck manipulation. But Art of War cards allow you to draw, so if you're drawing more than your opponent, when you have to draw and you can't, your opponent takes all the remaining cards and puts them into his hand. And then both players shuffle their discard piles, make new decks, and then you continue on from there. I really like that system because if you are... It's not that you're going more than your opponent, but you have more opportunities to activate your units. You're not relying on, drawing at the start of your turn and hoping you get something. Your opponent has kind of had more options available to them because they have been going through their deck. But now, on your turns, you could have... it's like, oh man, I have cards that are upside down in here. I was like, what the hell happened here? It's like, man, I have all these options now. I can now use my Art of War cards for abilities instead of searching for something. I can now activate my God multiple times. I can activate my monsters multiple times, whatever it might be. That's just a really nice catch-up mechanism without it feeling like bullshit. It feels like your opponent... You have to be wary of how quickly you're going through your deck because you could see that your opponent has a ton of cards left. And it's like, man, do I really want to give them all those cards now? It's just nice. It's a really cool system. And yeah, this is one of my absolute favorite parts. Then, my second favorite part, and I know I'm not really talking about Isfet specifically, I'm really just kind of talking about the Mythic Battle system, but my second favorite part about this game, and I talk about this, I have a top 5 skirmish games out there, and the dice system in this game is just so innovative. Because so many games in skirmishes, like, oh, okay, what's your defense? It's 10, and I'm rolling d10s. All right, let's see if I roll 10s, and that's kind of it. This game, or some games are just, hey, 5s and 6s are hits, whatever they might be. And some games, that's perfectly fine. Like Summoner Wars is a skirmish game where you have to roll. Well, Summoner Wars 2nd edition actually has you roll for symbols. In the 1st edition, I think it was 5 or 6s. But this game is completely innovative in that your dice only go from 0 to a 5. But your characters, monsters and heroes and your god, have defenses of up to 8. It's like, well, obviously I can't roll an 8 when it only goes up to 5. But you have chances of whenever your first assault, your first roll, you're looking for 5s. Wow, this was actually really good. I rolled 3 5s. And then you can spend other dice to increase the value of dice by 1. In this case, I rolled a 4 and a 3. I could spend the 3 to turn this 4 into a 5. Now I have 4 5s. And it's like, all right, time for my secondary roll. And then you have essentially 4 5s off to the side. you're looking to get an 8. Now on your secondary roll, you're looking for 3s or higher, which in this case I got a 5, a 3, and a 4. So that would be, you just add those to your set aside 5s, so that's an 8, 9, and a 10. That's 3 wounds. It comes off kind of confusing whenever you're explaining it, but then when you see it in practice, it just makes sense, and I love that system because your characters have a lot of health and they have high defenses, but almost every single attack, regardless of who's hitting them, you're gonna probably get at least 1 wound, and in my experience playing Mythic Battles, 1 wound is a whole hell of a lot better than 0. Even though you rolled a shit ton of dice and you only got 1 wound, that is so much better than 0 wounds, than just completely whiffing. But it's not impossible. It still is dice, you could still miss, but there's tons of talents that increase your attack or increase your defense to make it harder to be hit. Ramses II has an ability where if he's around, his allies, he can actually have them re-roll a die in their first phase. So, which is actually how I won this last game, is I was trying to kill Bastet, and because my god was around my hero, I rolled 4 5s, and then I was like, oh, I can actually re-roll one of these dice, and I rolled another 5, which was enough to get to 5 wounds, and that actually helped kill. So it's entirely possible for you to completely do a shit ton of damage, and it feels really good, but you very rarely miss. And I really like this dice system. It's not overly complex. It's not all or nothing. You can still miss, but that is more often than not you are going to hit. Whenever we're talking about Isfet specifically, the question kind of comes down to, if you own none of them, if you don't own, Mythic Battles Pantheon, if you don't own Ragnarok, or you don't own Isfet, and you're trying to jump into one of them, which one do you get? Well, there's actually a few things to consider. One, Mythic Battles Isfet is probably the cleanest of the 3. Ragnarok, I was looking at both of them, kind of like I was basically comparing the player aids. Ragnarok has a few more talents. Both of them have a few different terrains. You're going to see the more common terrains, rock, ruins, water, things like that, but each of them have their own kind of unique terrains. A few different talents. I think there was close protection and close combat. That was in Ragnarok. So I'm not entirely sure why there's less talents in Isfet. Maybe they just kind of removed a few talents and kind of made them unique abilities for characters. I'm not sure. But I would say Isfet is the cleanest of the 3. Albeit not by much, but it is easier to jump into. Whenever you're looking at the scenarios, I actually haven't tested the scenarios for really any of them. I've always just played this as a skirmish game, so I'm not sure how the scenarios compare to one another. Then it comes down to, are you wanting, how much content do you want? Because out of all 3 of them, Isfet has the least amount of content. It is the newest, so it has, the storage box and the core box, and then 2 expansions, Duot and Eternal Cycle, that adds, a few more gods, heroes, monsters, scenarios, and maps. So, not saying there's no content, but there's less of it. And then with this latest campaign, it added the Kraken box to Ragnarok, because Ragnarok also didn't have all that much either, but now there is probably more content with Ragnarok than Isfet. And then Pantheon has significantly more. It has so many more expansions to it. I would almost say an obscene amount, because if I'm looking, I have 3D printed inserts for all of them except for Isfet because it just came out. And Ragnarok was condensed to 3 boxes, now 4 because of the Kraken. But Pantheon still has 4 boxes. and the 2 new ones that just came out. So there is a ton more content for Pantheon than any of them. I'd say Pantheon has more content than both Isfet and Ragnarok combined. So that's one thing to consider. And whenever you're playing Pantheon, it even tells you, hey, use the new Ragnarok rules, or probably now the new Isfet rules. So yeah, and then the third question is which mythology do you like the most? Do you actually like Egyptian mythology more? Then probably just grab Isfet. Out of all 3 of them, the Egyptian mythology is the one I know almost nothing about. I know a few god names, and that's pretty much it. I'm like, oh, this is the god of the sun. That's it. That's like pretty much all I know. But it is always intriguing. They actually, in their art books, they're also lore books, so that's really cool. And what's also fantastic about this game is they are completely cross-compatible. That's one of the reasons why I've stuck with all 3 of them, because it's cool to have different pantheons clash against one another. And I've done that. Before Isfet came out, I've had Ragnarok and Pantheon, merge and fight one another. You can have a mix of heroes and a mix of monsters and a mix of gods fight one another. And it just feels extremely epic and highly strategic and tactical in this game. So the one biggest complaint that I honestly have about Isfet, and I'm not quite sure why, but the miniatures feel like they're worse. And I actually had to pull out, because I have Amet right here. And this is one of the larger miniatures. The detail on them is still good, which I guess is perfectly fine for a lot of people. But they feel lighter. They feel almost like a worse plastic than the other ones. Because the other Titans are heavy. They're like a thick plastic. So you feel the quality is better on the other ones. Not that these minis are terrible. It just, whenever I noticed there was a weight difference, and I was like, oh, are these hollow? It just feels kind of weird. So I'm not sure if they just made a difference in production quality whenever they were making this one, or if they were just outside, circumstances that were affecting the way that they were making them. Either way, the minions are still highly detailed. They still look badass on the map, and I'm sure painting them isn't going to be really any different than the other ones. That was just the bigger quality, production quality that I felt between all 3 of them. In terms of the way Isfet plays, it plays the exact same way as Ragnarok and the updated Pantheon rules. The characters that I have seen while playing this do feel like they do something different, and you just have more content in Mythic battles. And that's pretty much it. It is kind of a weird discussion, because it's it's Mythic battles, but now Egypt. And some people might be getting burned out on it, or might be jumping into this one, or looking to jump into the system from the newest one. And I'm here to say that it is still a phenomenal skirmish game. I still really like the system, and now it's just more to add into the Pantheon stuff. I'm not quite sure. I remember them, Monolith, putting out a survey on whether, what they should do next, or if they should branch into different systems within Mythic battles. I can't quite remember what all was an option, but I'm pretty sure they had a list of different cultures to jump into. And I want to say Japan was the highest voted one. There's some really cool ones out there, but I think it's funny. It's almost a natural progression. These are kind of the 3 biggest pantheons, Greek, Norse, and then Egyptian. And then it just feels like Japanese is kind of the natural one you go to next. And hell, even the God of War games are doing that. It's hey, here's the Greek pantheon. Now God of War went to Norse, and it's rumored the next game is going to be set in Egypt. That just feels like what you do, because they're the biggest ones. They're the ones that have the biggest, names to them that most people are going to recognize. No idea why that's the case, but it is what it is. So yeah, really enjoy this. Highly recommend it. On a scale of 1 to 10, Isfet, let's see what I gave Ragnarok, because I just want to make sure that it is all, because it's going to be the exact same. as what I gave Mythic Battles Ragnarok. One thing that is also great about this system, Ragnarok was the exact same way. These player aids are phenomenal. They are some of the best player aids I have ever seen, and maybe that's why they also... Well, I mean, even the few talents that are missing, those were on the player aids in Ragnarok. But virtually, like, this game is so easy to teach, and then once you teach it, anyone who hasn't played before, it's like, oh, just look at this. It tells you exactly what symbols are for your god's abilities, what your turn sequence is, you know, simple actions, complex actions, and then how actions work, and then on the back what terrain means, and the talents, the most common talents, and I'm pretty sure they're not going to deviate from this. And then if you ever have a question, it tells you the page number in the rulebook. So very few times it's like, oh yeah, so what do, in an area attack, is it just one die roll, or do I attack each unit individually? Oh, area attack. Okay, cool, let me just find that page number in the rulebook. Oh, here it is. They have done a, you know, stellar job of you know, getting people into this game. And I actually taught this game to my girlfriend, and she had a fantastic time playing it because it wasn't, like, extremely overwhelming. Even with all the talents, we were like, okay, what the hell is bolster? What's mobility? What's block? What's hero slayer? Like, you're thrown in with a bunch of different talents that in a lot of games it's like keyword heavy, and then you're just like, I'm immediately overwhelmed. You don't really have to be. It's like, oh, okay, here's everything that I need to, and 4 of my characters have block. Well, now I know exactly what block does. I don't have to keep looking at it. So, Mythic Battles Isfet gets a 9 out of 10 for me, because that's what I gave Ragnarok, and yeah. It's exquisite, so I really, really like this game. That's it, everyone. That's my thoughts on Mythic Battles Isfet. Let me know what you think of the game in the comments below. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.